Hi friends, welcome back to my channel. My name's Emily if you're new here. Today's video is going to be my September reading wrap up. I haven't done a wrap up in a while, it's been a few months, and honestly I've just forgotten and I've kind of been in a little bit of a slump, so I haven't really been in the mood to film. But I'm here and I'm ready to talk about all the books I read in September. So in total, over the month of September, I read a total of 39 reads, which is a lot, but 30 of those reads were actually manga that I did for a whole other video, which I will link in the cards. So I did a 30 manga in 30 days challenge, which was successful, and I had a lot of fun with that challenge. I literally found some amazing series that I will be continuing on with, but as of right now I am just going to go through the books that I read that weren't a part of that manga 30 and 30. I will quickly go over what manga I read in the 30 and 30 in order, but I am not going to talk about them because I did a whole entire reading vlog, which was an hour and a half long, dedicated to the 30 manga that I read in the month of September. So the first manga that I read was Happiness Volume 1, the second volume was Fairy Tale Volume 1, then I read Love Me Love Me Not Volume 1, then I read Zombie Cherry Volume 1, then I read Noragami Stray God Volume 1, Princess Freya Volume 1, LDK Volume 1, Deadpool Samurai Volume 1, Weisengath Volume 1, One Punch Man Volume 1, Bleach Volume 1, Dr. Stone Volume 1, The King's Beast Volume 1, Witch Hat Attila Volume 1, Blame Volume 1, You Are My Pet Volume 1, Devil's Line Volume 1, Demon Slayer Volume 1, Agin Volume 1, Full Metal Alchemist Volume 1, Chainsaw Man Volume 1, Snow White with the Red Hair Volume 1, and then I also read To Your Eternity Volume 1, Flying Witch Volume 1, A Side Character's Love Story Volume 1, School Judgment Volume 1, Yona of the Dawn Volume 1, My Little Monster Volume 1, Fire Force Volume 1, and Vinland Saga Volume 1. So those were the 30 manga that I read in September. It was a lot. It was over 5,700 pages that I read of manga alone. So I try to read one volume a day, but I was reading 2 volumes at some point because I had missed a few days, like being away and just getting caught up with life. As you may not know, I actually work full time. So I work Monday to Friday, 7.6 hour days, and I still manage to read as much as I can, but it does get very overwhelming sometimes. So the first book that I officially read in the month of September was Crescent City, House of Sky and Breath. I gave this one a 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. I absolutely ate it up. I did read it over the month, so I did pretty much, I think I started in August, but I finished it off in September, the first week of September. Now, throughout the whole majority of the book, it was sitting at a low 4 stars for me. Then the last page happened and immediately I changed my rating to 5 stars because I was absolutely shocked. I was so shocked. My brain went into overdrive. I was up for hours thinking about it. What happened at the end of House of Sky and Breath? It was seriously next level. When is Flame and Shadow coming out? Because I need to read book 3 ASAP. Overall though, I really enjoyed my time reading House of Sky and Breath. I did find it a little bit long. Obviously it is an 800-page book, but there was some very slow parts, I would say, in this book, and not a lot happened. A lot happened, but not a lot happened at the same time. So we obviously continue on with following Bryce and we're following Hunt, and there is another investigation that they are investigating in House of Sky and Breath. And obviously we see Rune, we find new characters, new friendships, new allies and enemies. So it's a whole new plot line, but it does continue on from the first book as well. So if you haven't already started or have not read this series, I do really recommend it. It is a really well written urban fantasy series. I have had the best time with Crescent City thus far. It is definitely my favorite series of Sarah J Maas currently. I have not read Throne of Glass, but I love the Crescent City series and I much prefer that over Akatar. It's just, to me, some parts of Akatar were really cringy, and I really apologize about the sound. It is very windy outside, but yes, some parts of Akatar for me were quite cringe moments, but then again, I do see the cringe in Crescent City, but it's just more my type of cringe. Overall though, I had a really, really good time reading Crescent City House of Sky and Breath. I also buddy read this with Liv from Endless Pages, and she also absolutely devoured and loved this book so much. So it was a really fun time, especially buddy reading and like messaging each other about how we were feeling. In some parts, it was really good. The next book that I read was Home Before Dark by Riley Sager, and I gave this a low 3 out of 5 stars. This one kind of didn't work for me. It just flopped. I don't know. A lot of people love this book, but I don't even know. Like, I kind of really didn't like it, and I don't know if I should rate it a 2.5 and not a 3, because I really did not enjoy my time overly that much reading it. I really did enjoy the atmospheric vibes of Baneberry Hall, but the main character was so annoying. Like, I really found her POV absolutely infuriating, and I don't know if it's just the way that Riley Sager writes women. I did not like the main character. I didn't like her at all. Home Before Dark was not a supernatural thriller like I thought it was going to be. I really didn't enjoy that plot twist, I guess. Riley Sager had inspiration from the Amityville Horror, and that is a 100% supernatural related. But Home Before Dark, I don't know. It was marketed as a supernatural thriller, and it wasn't. So that kind of really fell flat for me. That's just how I feel with a lot of Riley Sager books. I mean, I've only read 2 of them, but both of them, I have found the main characters so annoying. Yes, it's a thriller, and you have unreliable, unlikable characters, but I don't know. I just don't vibe with Riley Sager's writing, unfortunately, which is a big bummer for me because I really want to like his work. Everyone else seems to like him, so I don't know why I don't, but I just don't vibe with his work. So I don't know if I will continue on with Riley Sager. Home Before Dark, I just didn't like it. So basically we follow a family, and the female character is in the present timeline, and her father has a POV in the past timeline. So originally they moved to Baneberry Hall, I think 20 odd years before the current timeline, and immediately weird things start happening in the house, and her father gets really uncomfortable. There is a lot of history in Baneberry Hall. There was a lot of murders that happened there. A lot of people died in the hall, and so there is a lot of dark energy present. And the main character's father at the time he was a writer, and he grasped inspiration in writing this bestseller fiction, but not fiction, but it was classed as a fiction novel about the horrors that they had at Baneberry Hall. And obviously he took all that to the grave with him because he died, and his daughter still never knew the truth because she never believed in Baneberry Hall, never believed in any of the supernatural stories that her father would tell her about Mr. Shadow or anything like that, and she never really knew what was real and what wasn't real. So her whole life she just didn't believe, and thought her father and her mother lied about everything that they had claimed had happened at Baneberry Hall. And so she has to deal with the repercussions of that her whole life, and her childhood changed because of the book, and everyone knew who she was through the book and not actually her as a real person. And then obviously her father dies, and the whole time she thought that her father had sold Baneberry Hall all those years ago when they never returned, but that wasn't the case. He never sold it, so it went to her with his will. And so she decides she wants to redo Baneberry Hall and remodernize it, and she moves back there, but she starts experiencing her own issues with the house. So yeah, it gets really weird from there. I would not class this as a supernatural thriller, even though I personally found it marketed as a supernatural thriller, but I could be entirely wrong. It might not be marketed as that, but a lot of reviews that I read was psychological supernatural thriller-esque, so I don't know. Okay, the next book that I read was The 7 Year Slip by Ashley Poston, which I gave an infinity out of 5 stars. My favourite book of the year. Hands down, my favourite book of the year. I'm absolutely obsessed. I still think about the characters. I loved this book so much. So The 7 Year Slip follows Clementine. So Clementine works for a publishing company, and her whole life she basically has kept to herself. She doesn't want to get her heart broken. Her aunt was her best friend, absolutely adored each other. They traveled the world together. It was a beautiful relationship that they had. And then unfortunately her aunt actually passed away before, I think 6 months before we introduced to Clementine. And so we see Clementine dealing with her side of grief and dealing with that, being so close to someone and then losing them so in such an abrupt way, not realizing what they were going through, things like that. I have been through a similar experience before, so that's probably why I really grasped onto this storyline. I loved it so much. I cried so much. I laughed. I giggled. It was such a heartwarming book. But Clementine moves into her aunt's apartment, and her aunt's apartment is actually magical, but she never really believed it until one day she walks in to the apartment and finds an auburn-haired man standing in her kitchen cooking. And she freaks out, he freaks out, she tells him to leave, but what she doesn't realize is that in this current present time, the apartment has taken her back 7 years prior. So she meets Ewan, and he is 7 years from the past. And obviously he's a lot younger than she is in that time, but they hit it off, and she miraculously goes back 7 years in her apartment. And when she leaves the apartment and she comes back in, sometimes it doesn't take her back to the past. So yeah, we basically just see her dealing with her feelings for Ewan, who is in the past, and obviously they cross paths in the current time. So she deals with Ewan in his past life and in his present life. So it's really interesting. I absolutely love the premise. Love the relationship that formed between Ewan and Clementine. It was so beautiful, and oh my goodness, like the talk about food in this book, it was so delightful, and I loved it so much. I cannot fault this book in any way. Okay, so the next book that I read was Neon Gods by Katie Robert. I gave this one 3 stars, I think. And yeah, I don't know. It's a Persephone and Hades retelling. Spicy as heck. Like, so freaking spicy. I don't know. I don't read a lot of spicy books, but from what I see is Katie Robert loves some spice. And it was definitely really spicy. Basically, Persephone escapes the upper city because she is trying to be married to Zeus, and she doesn't want to be married to Zeus because he basically kills all of his wives, and she doesn't want to be the next person to die. So she leaves the upper city to the lower city where Hades lives and rules, and he basically takes her in and they form a relationship. At first it was basically to get back at Zeus, but things change, and yeah, it was okay. Like, that's basically the premise of the book. Not much plot, just vibes basically. And then I read Sign Here by Claudia Lux, which I gave another 3 out of 5 stars. This was average to me. Yes, I enjoyed the dark humor, and yes, I enjoyed the POVs from hell, but I don't know, the family that we were following in this book were very unreliable, very toxic, non-communicative, just things like that, you know. There was cheating, affairs, there was kind of pedophilia in a way. Like, the husband was attracted to her daughter's friend who was 16, and it was quite weird vibes. But I don't really remember what happens in this book, I'm not gonna lie. I know that we followed a character named Peyote, and he was from hell, and basically from hell, Peyote makes humans sign contracts and basically sells their soul to hell once they die, so he can give them anything that they desire. If they're begging for something, he will come to them and make him sign the contract, but they don't actually know what they're signing, and so they're basically signing their soul to hell for eternity when they die. And hell is miserable, as you would obviously, as hell is portrayed, right? And yeah, we follow this family, the outside world, who Peyote keeps track of. But yeah, I don't know, it was kind of shambled. Peyote was funny, and a lot of his work colleagues in hell were funny as well, so I liked that aspect of it, but that was basically all. I just thought it was okay. It was an interesting premise, but yeah, I don't remember much else. I then read Garlic and the Vampire by Brie Paulson, which I gave a 4 out of 5 stars to. It was so freaking cute. This was a graphic novel that I read, and I had the best time reading it. It was adorable. We basically follow Garlic, and Garlic is a she, and she has friends like celery and carrot, and this is a bunch of beautiful little vegetables. And then they have the witch who like is basically their mum. She kind of made them born from the garden. And so anyways, in the castle far away, you can kind of see in the actual cover of this book, we see a castle and a vampire has occupied it. So Garlic is set on a mission to go talk to this vampire because there is obviously superstitions that vampires don't like garlic, and they thought garlic would be the perfect vegetable to go and confront this vampire and tell him to leave the town so that he doesn't hurt them. When she arrives at the castle, the vampire is definitely not what Garlic assumed him to be, and it was just a really cute fun time, and I love this graphic novel. The art style was beautiful as well, so I really recommend Garlic and the Vampire. Then read Hazel Shadow by Nicole McCarran, and this was a horror, YA horror. It had fat rep, it had LGBTQ plus rep. We follow Hazel, and it was just an ordinary day for her, and her mum is a nurse, so her and her sister stay at home, and they are about to go to school, and her mum is a nurse, so she gets a call from her mum saying that her grandma has been admitted to hospital, and Hazel has always been able to see ghosts and spirits and usually helps them pass over, but she saw this dark entity looming over her grandma's body before she died, and so that's what starts it all. People start going insane, as in like zombie World War Z vibes. These fast flesh-eating zombies come after them. It was just really intense, and we see Hazel and her friends trying to survive, and it was very interesting premise. I did really enjoy it though. I gave it a 5 stars. I really liked it. I then read The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson, which I gave a 5 stars as well too. I absolutely love this book so much. I love the gothic elements. I love the old writing style. I just loved it. I really enjoyed the writing of Shirley Jackson. I have never read a Shirley Jackson before. This was basically my first proper classic, I would say, modern classic. I know it was written in the 1930s, I'm pretty sure, but this book was phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. I love the characters. I love how unhinged Eleanor was at some points. I really liked Theodora. I liked Luke. I liked the Doctor. I thought it was a really well written book, and I will be reading the new spin-off from The Haunting of Hill House, A Haunting on the Hill, I think it's called. I will be reading that at some point, hopefully in the next month or two. Like, we didn't even really get much of a supernatural element like this show. As you would know, there is a show adaptation to this book, but there is just that eeriness of Hill House in general. Like, we don't really see much of a supernatural presence per se, but we do see these really unhinged characters, and they just slowly start to lose themselves in Hill House, and I absolutely loved it. I loved it. So thank you to Michaela for recommending this book. She talked about it, one of her favorite books now of the year as well. Absolutely adored it. It was so good. The final book that I read in the month of September was Ankle Snatcher by Grady Hendrix, which I gave another 5 stars to. Wow. I'm not going to talk much about this because this is actually part of a creature feature collection. There are 6 creature features a part of this collection, and they are on Kindle Unlimited, but I'm pretty sure if you're a Amazon Prime member, you get the free audiobook as well as you get to download these for free as well, I think. I don't know, but it was something to do with KU. They are horror. There are 6 horror creature features, and basically, as the title says, Ankle Snatcher, we basically follow an entity that snatches ankles and drags you under beds. It was very creepy. It was literally 30 pages, and I was creeped out, and I wish we got to read more because I love this version of Grady Hendrix. Like, usually Grady Hendrix, he's a dark, humorous, but a little bit of funny comedy horror. This was no comedy. This was just pure terrifying horror. I really enjoyed this one. So those were all the books I read in September. I had such an amazing month, and as I'm filming this, we are nearly halfway through October, but I am having a really great reading month, and I'm finding some really amazing reads. So 39 reads in September is my best month yet. It got me over 100 reads for the year. I'm just really happy with the stats that I made in September. So yes, thank you guys so much for watching. As always, please don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It really helps my channel grow, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye guys.